Hey everybody, I tried to get online with Facebook a little while ago. I had some type of connection issues, but I didn't want to hold you long tonight at all. I wanted to talk about something that I posted up on Facebook probably a couple of days ago. And we'll give some time for people to jump on. Invite people on this video. Man, I got something I want to share with y'all. This is going to be amazing. Judas is necessary. I don't want you to spend another day getting irritated with whatever may be a Judas in your life, whoever you feel like is coming against you. We're going to kind of talk through this tonight. I want to help us to unravel our emotions so that we are more consumed with being eternal and not emotional. I think the soulish realm is really capturing the life of a believer, and we're not applying biblical truths to what we're dealing with. So tonight I want to talk about Judas, whoever Judas may be. If you haven't met him yet, you will. If that situation hasn't come up upon you, that betraying situation that may kind of cause you to feel a little disillusioned, maybe disraveled, or just irritated, upset. We want to make sure that in this timing we're focusing our attention on what God said, what God revealed, and what God is doing, and not giving so much energy, social media energy, spending more time venting about Judas and not having victory over Judas. So the first thing I want to help us to understand and get the word out, spread this, share this, invite people to watch this. The first thing I want us to talk about tonight concerning Judas is understanding that, number one, if we're going to be effective, if we're going to be efficient in this walk as a believer, knowing that an audience is watching us at all times, we have to understand, I've got my notes here, that our maturity and our character level will determine our purpose and our victory. And our response, that's key. Our maturity and our character will determine our response, our purpose, and our victory as it relates to our Judas. Now, when you look at the story of Judas, and he really finds the significance in around Matthew 26, verse 14, when he came to betray Jesus and as we call him, do it in. Think about this. Often throughout the book of Matthew, as we read the Bible, the main characters that we see encapsulating Jesus at times of his ministry was not necessarily Judas. Judas was found in one significant event in that Bible, and that was when it was time to betray him. But the main audience that was around Jesus was the Pharisees. Now, if we go back a couple of days ago, I put something on Facebook. I said, if you cannot effectively deal with what people do to you out of their ignorance towards you, then we will not be able to, or mature enough, we will not be mature enough to be able to deal with what people do to us on purpose. A lot of times people do things and say things out of their ignorance. And then when something is done on purpose, we can't handle it because we've been so busy falling apart over what people do to us out of our ignorance. Out of their ignorance. And it's probably because it's a part of us that has never been healed from needing validation from people. And we have to understand that if we are going to base our altitude off of the praise and applause of people, we will forever be at their disposal and at their beckoning. In other words, if we depend on, if we determine how high we're going to go in life and ministry and the anointing in God, whatever you want to call it, based on the applause, how strong and how loud the applause is. Hey, son, I see you, Minister Jeremy Reed. If you base it on that, then you will forever be at the mercy of what people do to you out of their ignorance. And you will never find your true momentum in this season. And I'm telling you, in this season that's coming, I sense so strongly, especially in 2018. 2018 is really going to be a year of divine momentum for the believers. It's going to be a year of divine strategy. God is going to reveal some things to us. He's going to purpose in our hearts to do some things. And some of the things that he's going to call us to do and calls us to do will be completely without a lot of the assistance or connections that we think and deem to be important. Some of the things will be done just because he said it. And when he speaks it, when he reveals it, it's enough power in that thing to make things happen for us, regardless of if we have connections or not. So when you look at, let's get back to the story here. Pharisees constantly surrounded Jesus. Now, I want you to see this. Pharisees were a people that had two things going on with them. Number one, they did not understand Jesus. And number two, they refused to understand Jesus. I really want you to catch this. They were a people that were always around when Jesus was doing ministry, when Jesus was demonstrating the kingdom of God, when he was preaching the kingdom, when he was, showing people a side of heaven that they had never encountered or experienced, when he was showing people the Father's heart that they had never encountered before. The Pharisees were consistently or often around Jesus, trying to stop his momentum, trying out of their ignorance. Now, we haven't even gotten to purpose yet. We're talking about what people do out of their ignorance. And they constantly surrounded Jesus out of their ignorance. They opposed Jesus out of their own ignorance because they refused to understand him, or they just did not understand him or receive him or accept him or promote him. And what happens is what we learn in that is that we have to understand that oftentimes in our ministry, in the marketplace, in life, on the job, whatever case may be, sometimes in family and sometimes in church, we'll often be surrounded by people who will not or cannot identify us. They will not be able to receive us. They will not be able to promote us. And let me stop right there. We must answer this question. Do we want to be promoted or do we want to be potent? That's the reigning question of the answer, the reigning question of the season right now. Do we want to be promoted or do we want to be potent? And where I've resolved in my life is that I'm spending little time on trying to promote myself or wanting or encouraging people to promote me and spending more time on being potent in the kingdom and potent in life. It's got to be a balance. We can't be so powerful in church and then we're broke in life and all things are happening ministry-wise, but in life, there's just no momentum going. We have to have that balance. So we got to answer the question, do we want to be promoted or do we want to be potent? And the ministry of Jesus, he wasn't really concerned with being promoted, especially by the Pharisees. His desire was to be potent enough to where anytime somebody encountered him, they received a divine encounter, a divine touch from the Father. And so this is the mindset. Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ. This is the mindset that a believer has to have, especially in this season when we're going to be facing some Judases that are some of us coming around the corner. So that's why I put on Facebook, if we can't handle a Pharisee, this is a person who refuses to understand you, refuses to believe you, refuses to promote you, we will find it very difficult to deal with a Judas. I want you to hear that. If we cannot handle a Pharisee, what people do out of their ignorance towards us, we will not be able to deal with a Judas, what people do on purpose against us. And so when Judas comes, which he will, and I'm sure some of you on here, you've experienced it. When Judas comes, if we remain emotional as a spiritually led person, then out of an ungraduated maturity or an ungraduated character, we will be or find ourselves disqualified from our defining moment. I really, really believe that we have to get extremely focused on what God has already said to us and what God has already announced over us, that we do not allow the irritations of people to cause us to forget God's announcement that was placed on us before people were even placed in the picture. Man, this is good right here. This is good right here. So if our character is ungraduated, if our love walk is ungraduated, then what happens is it will have the ability or the capacity, if you will, to disqualify us from our defining moment. And guys, if you're watching, I tell you, we are getting ready to hit our defining moment as a believer. There is going to be something that God is going to, by his favor, allow to come into our life and hit our life that's really going to cause people to rethink who they thought we were and what they thought we were. I think the most common mistake that people make is trying to consistently identify us with where they last met us, or they consistently try to articulate us from when the last time they seen us, with not understanding that whether it was 15 years ago or 15 minutes ago, I've shifted and I've transitioned. And when you've shifted and transitioned, transitions and shifts require no apologies or permissions. They require the divine hand of God to be able to maneuver you and move you past the realm of Pharisees and Judases and even situations that may come. So understand this. Jesus was never oblivious to who Judas was throughout his whole entire mission. He all-knowing, all-seeing, omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient. He was completely aware of who Judas was during his entire mission, yet he did not allow Judas to derail him from his assignment. Now imagine this, if we will. Imagine if Jesus started spending valuable time, and I would even say this, wasting valuable time trying to expose Judas, trying to tell people who Judas was, trying to convince his immediate circle of who Judas was, his entire mission, trying to just use opportunities to preach Judas from the pulpit, Okay, you never hear Jesus talking about Judas in any of his sermons. Why is that? Why is that? Why is that so important to catch you? Because it would have created a realm of suspicion while Jesus was in mission mode. I want you to get that. Had Jesus focused solely on exposing Judas during his entire earthly assignment and used his discernment to try to figure out who Judas was and to try to pinpoint and show Judas to his circle, and then try to gather his people around himself so that he could have a unified front against this Judas, then he would have consistently created a realm of suspicion, which we are sometimes guilty of doing in our own lives, especially in our churches. Sometimes let's just be honest. We go to, sometimes we've been to churches. We go to churches where, we're trying to figure out who this person is. We're trying to figure out why this person's here. We're trying to figure out why this person wants to get close to the pastor. This person, I haven't even liked you for 5 years. This person, I don't even know why you're here. And we go through all of it. I'm making a light joke of it, but we go through all these different emotions. And we have this emotionally charged atmosphere that is charged with negativity. And please understand that whether it be in church, whether it be in life, whether it be on your job, whether it be in your own momentum, an atmosphere that is negatively charged with emotions will be void of God's glory. You have to understand that the glory of God, I'm talking about the dispensational glory that God is getting ready to release and has released on his people. I mean, think it not strange. God has been moving tremendously in churches within these last several weeks, last several months. I'm hearing testimonies all over from different churches and pastors. There's been an unusual movement that's been going on. And it's designed so that we can move as a body of believers, move past this emotional captivity that comes with Judas and Pharisees, etc., and get more focus on the divine encounters that are waiting on us and in our local assemblies or even in our lives. And the glory that's about to be released. I'm talking about a glory that's going to move beyond the pulpit. It's coming a time, ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching, we're going to see the glory. I'm talking about the raw power of God demonstrated on people who don't even have titles or licenses or ordinations. But our training ground before we hit our ultimate glory sometimes will be Judas. And so this is why I said Judas is necessary. Judas is a divine perspective says that Judas is a necessary ingredient before I hit my ultimate glory. This is good right here. So here's the thing. Sometimes we're guilty of making. Let me say this. We're guilty of not making spirit-led decisions because of suspicious-led choices. So in one way that we're going to disarmor this mindset of warring against Judas or overcoming Judas, etc., the first thing we got to understand is that we cannot afford to create realms or environments of suspicion where we're trying to use our discernment or our thought processes or what we're thinking to try to expose who's for us, who's against us. Let me tell you something. The Lord showed me. Jesus did not have to spend any time really in his earthly assignment trying to expose Judas. You know what exposed Judas? Destiny. And the thing about it is sometimes the closer you get to fulfilling a defining moment for your life, that's when Judas is exposed. Now, let me stop right there because a lot of times we feel like we're on the verge of a breakthrough, we're on the verge of something great, and everything is just going to be peaches and cream. And sometimes that's when Judas shows up. But if we start tripping out over him and we started allowing ourselves to be emotionally subtracted because of him and emotionally bound because of this Judas or her, this Judas that comes up in our lives, then not only would we derail our audience and give them a permission to behave immaturely, but we will miss our ultimate glory, our defining moment that God has set up for a believer. Man, y'all catch this now. Catch this. If you are crippled in a moment of Judas, you will miss a destiny of glory. And I'm not talking about, going to that great getting up yonder when we die and go to be with the Lord. I'm talking about heaven on earth right now as we're living. And the only thing that I'm finding out, especially with believers, especially with Christians, is that our emotions are really trapping us and tripping us and tricking us. Our emotions, I'll say that again. They're trapping us, they're tripping us, and they're tricking us. If we're going to deal with a Judas, we've got to overcome our own emotions. Somebody say amen to that. So I want to say this. Don't invest valuable time trying to identify and search out and expose your Judas. Okay, Jesus never had to spend time in prayer. He never had to use his prophetic discernment. Jesus never had to, call on a prayer partner to help him see who Judas was. He never had to even go to God and say, Lord, show me who Judas was. Destiny exposed Judas. And the closer you get to that defining moment, the closer you get to your next level victory, that's when Judas will show up. But that is not your time to start behaving out of character and using spiritual labels to cover up fleshly reactions. Because sometimes let me say that again. We don't want to use that time to use spiritual labels to cover up fleshly reactions. Reacting fleshly towards when somebody betrays us. And let me help us right here for a second. Just because someone disagrees with you doesn't mean that's your Judas. Just because someone doesn't support you in a season that you feel like you should be supported or promoted does not make them a Judas. I think, as believers, we have to really be guarded with making fleshly decisions when God has divinely connected people. I see it all the time. We're so quick to disconnect from a divine connection, from a fleshly motive with a spiritual label. It's my season to transition. It's my season to move. I feel, here goes, guys. I feel led. I don't feel like I fit anymore in this. I don't feel like I belong here, et cetera, et cetera. Well, anytime you say I feel, that's a key indicator that flesh is 110% involved in that decision. It's absolutely true, guys. And so we have to get to the point where we are not making, or we're not allowing fleshly decisions to rule us. Now, let me just go on because I don't want to keep you long. Now the question comes, what is a necessary response that I must walk out for a necessary Judas? The answer is the love of God. It's real simple, isn't it? The love of God. The love of God casts out all fear, torment. The love of God matures us. The love of God grows us. Let me show you something real quickly. Sometimes we can be so overcome with trying to remove people from our circle and trying to expel people from us. And, because they behaved this way or because they did this, we automatically want them out of our circles. We want them out of our corners. And I want to just kind of help us tonight. Please do not be so consumed with trying to get rid of people or trying to move people out. Let destiny do it. Because sometimes destiny has the ability, when you start making destiny moves, real destiny moves, and because what the Lord showed me is that even some of you that are watching, God is going to cause such momentum to happen for you in 2018 that it's going to make people nervous around you. Glory to God. Glory to God. Glory to God. It's going to make people nervous. People are going to think that you're missing the mark and that you've missed God. You have to be fully persuaded. Because the things that are going to happen for you and the things that are already, they're lined up for you already, but God's going to use time to manifest them. And the things that are going to start manifesting in your life and the things that you're going to start doing and accomplishing, people are going to second guess you. They're going to ask, are you really sure you heard God on this? Are you really sure? And see, you do not have time to explain something that can only be demonstrated. You do not have the time to explain something that can only be demonstrated. So in this, understand that Jesus did not allow what he knew about Judas during his mission to distract him from his momentum. Or had he done that, it would have contributed to a negative atmosphere void of the glory of God. All right. So we understand this. Judas was a necessary ingredient. Somebody say that Judas is a necessary ingredient. It has to happen. Okay. Don't spend so much time trying to block Judas. Jesus said this. Jesus looked at Judas and said, what you must do it quickly. See, that's a yielded response. That's a place where you are resting in God. That's a place where you have been in such communion with God that he has already revealed to you his game plan and his strategy, so that when Judas starts tripping on you, you're not tripping on Judas. You're resting in the promises of God because you understand that this promise, this ultimate glory that God's going to produce in my life, Judas is a necessary ingredient. I'm not going to be mad with you. I'm not going to be irritated with you. I'm not going to be angry. Catch this. I will forgive you. But one thing I will not do is harbor you in my heart and make you feel like you owe me something. Judas is somebody, that's why I say it. Judas is a necessary ingredient. Judas is a necessary ingredient. Listen, here it is. The intent of God's glory, Jesus understood this. This is why he was able to walk with Judas. He was able to walk with him his whole entire time. Because Jesus understands that if I'm going to have an atmosphere charged with negative emotion, then it will be void of God's glory. So then the intent of God's glory, the original pattern of God's glory for the life of a believer was not to wrestle with our emotions. The intent of God's glory and the intent of the glory of God that is going to rest on us, I'm telling you, in 2018, is intended to make life respond to us. I prophetically release to you, and I prophesy to you if you're watching, that 2018 will be the year that life will respond to you. Things will break out for you. Things will happen for you. Things that you've been praying for and believing God for, they're going to happen for you. 2018 is a year for life to respond. We've been in quiet places. We've been making declarations and making decrees, and we haven't been seeing a lot of results. But I'm believing God with you that 2018, we're going to see some loud results. We're going to see some loud results based on our maturity and our character. This is why we cannot afford to allow the Judases in our life to trip us up and to trap us and trick us, because there is a far more exceeding weight of glory that is waiting for us on the other side of this test. So catch this now. How do we deal with Judas? Power, how powerful you are, doesn't deal with Judas. How anointed you are doesn't deal with Judas. Binding and loosing doesn't deal with Judas. Preaching Judas from the pulpit doesn't deal with Judas. Soliciting your prayer partners and throwing his name out there when we're really gossiping, but we're trying to make it seem like it's a prayer chain, that doesn't deal with Judas. Understand this. Being powerful doesn't deal with Judas. Being anointed doesn't deal with Judas. Binding and loosing doesn't deal with Judas. Character and maturity deals with Judas. A developed, processed character. He's on the line now. A colleague of mine, a co-laborer in Christ, Apostle Jonathan McKinney, posted something on Facebook recently about things needing to be coming from a place of process. Our character and our maturity has got to be far more processed than our giftings. Think about that for a second. So then here's the thing. Character and maturity is going to deal with our Judas. If anything, and I want to go back to a point I was trying to make, and I kind of jumped ahead of myself. If anything is going to come out from among us, because we're so obsessed with moving people out of our life and removing people from our space and moving people from our realm and wanting to be free from people. Hear this. If anything or anyone must come out from among us, we must first learn how to grow up among them. Come on, let the wheat and the tare grow together. We have to, don't be so obsessed with moving people out from you that you forget how to grow up among them. Sometimes God will allow irritable people, and frustrating people to come around you, to grow you. Think about that. He will allow it. And the time that we're spending trying to pray them out is the time that God is spending trying to push them in. Make sure we're wisely using our prayers and not praying amiss and hitting and missing in prayer time. So I want to leave you with this. Here's the thing. If in fact our character and our maturity deals with Judas, then the question is, can you walk with Judas? Can you be betrayed and not become a betrayer? Can someone set you up and you not remain a victim? It's the victim mentality. Prophet Joseph Waller talked about this earlier on Facebook. It's the victim mentality that is really on us as believers, whether it be in church, whether it be in life, whether it be in work. It's always what they did, how they did it. And here we are 10 or 15 years later, and we're still not healed from what somebody did 15 years ago. The question is, will thou be made whole? And the victim mentality is never going to bring you victory. It will, however, bring you a small audience that will, because of the victim mentality, serve you or cater to you based on your own inadequacies and think that they're doing God a justice and call that sowing and never reap a harvest from it. So then the focus isn't that Judas needs to be exposed. The focus is that we give permission for Judas to be expedient. Jesus said, that what you must do it quickly, because I have glory waiting on me. And if you don't expedite what you need to do, then everything will be placed on hold. Jesus said, I'm not going to fight against you. Think about this now. Jesus could have at any point in time rebuked Judas, called angels down from heaven to get rid of Judas. He could have done all this. He walked with Judas the whole time to grow us up because he knew that we would be in time on November 29th on this day, and we would need to learn something about maturity and real character. Man, we're as believers, we're not missing the prophetic. As believers, we're not missing the apostolic. We're not missing power in the church. We're missing love. We're missing love. We're not missing demonstrations of glory in our local assemblies. We are in fact missing character and integrity and maturity. And so the whole purpose of Jesus allowing Judas to walk with him the whole time was to say to us today, do not allow the mission of Judas to derail you from your maturity. We continue to grow up among Judas, and then destiny separates Judas. And we do not have to spend discernment or the prophetic trying to find out who Judas is among us. Now, know them that labor among you, yes. Discern the hearts of the people, yes. But when we make our life's motives and intent and agendas to discover and find out who's against us, then we are creating realms of suspicion where everybody is suspicious of everybody. And we come to church and we don't know who's who, and we don't know if you like me, and we don't know if you like our pastor, and we don't, and it's just this whole game without glory. Without glory. So listen, guys, as I close, I want to say this to you. Our defining moment is coming. This is the greatest time. This is the greatest time. I believe when we get ready to come into 2018, it truly is going to be a crossing over. So we're in the greatest time. We're in the greatest time of the miraculous and the demonstration that is set before us. But in our defining moment, it will require a Judas. And if you have not faced Judas yet, you will. And if you have faced a Judas before, then my next question is, did you pass that test? Or is that something that you have to go back and take over again? Because since, in fact, Romans 8:28, all things work together. I'm going to leave you with this point here. Since, in fact, all things work together for good, then as a believer, I'm not going to be so emotionally raveled or caught up in the all things that are happening against me that I miss and neglect the working together that's assigned to me. Do not be so caught up emotionally in the all things that are happening against you that you miss and neglect the working together that's assigned to you. Man, we're walking in assignment, we don't even realize it. So I want to encourage you tonight. The discernment you have, use it for destiny. The prophetic gift that you have, use it for destiny. The dream, the visions that you have, the momentum that you have, use it for destiny. Destiny will eventually expose Judas. But you do not want to create this pattern of going through life, going through work, going through church, going through relationships, trying to expose and find out who Judas is. Just do destiny and let God be God. Let God be God. Then what happens? Let all his enemies be scattered. Let God arise. Let all his enemies be scattered. Let God be God. Let all and let every man, every flesh act be a liar. We have the truth of God in us. We got the truth of God on our side. And so I just want to share that with you guys tonight. Share this if you can. Let's not be so Judas driven that we miss destiny. We miss defining moments that God has set up for us. Destiny always will expose Judas. We ourselves as believers, we do not have to create this tormenting zone of, not being able to trust someone and not being able to come into proper covenant with someone because of how the last Judas did us. If in fact it's a new season, we have to be the announcement that in fact it is a new season. A new season only comes by way of an announcement. And it's not necessarily an announcement that we're waiting on. It's an announcement that we step in and become ourselves as believers. And let's be careful that we're not making quick decisions to disconnect from destiny connections and divine connections because of a fleshly moment, because of a moment of misunderstanding. Just because someone misunderstood you does not make them a Judas. That could just be a Pharisee. And sometimes it's not even a Pharisee. It just could be an oops moment. Everybody will not receive us. Everybody will not receive you. Everybody will not agree with you at all times. But it doesn't mean that we are in fact enemies, or they're enemies to the cross, or they're sent to assassinate our destiny and our mission. So I want you to be encouraged tonight, because I believe God brought us together to just hear this, hear from heaven concerning this, and understand this, that he that began a good work, he's faithful, he's just, he's going to complete it. He's going to complete it. That is the confidence that we have. And we're not going to allow ourselves to get so emotionally caught up in this Judas thing that we miss destiny moves. God bless you. I pray that this has spoken to you some kind of way. Share this with somebody that you know is dealing with this. My cousin down there in Alabama, the great McKinney fam, is dealing with this right now. Be encouraged, Shirley. I'm telling you, I believe that in a matter of weeks, if not days, that this situation is going to absolutely turn around in your favor. I believe that anybody that's watching this, if you're dealing with a Judas situation, do not be overcome with it. Do not fall out of love with it. Do not allow yourself to go into a cave because of it. Understand that if in fact Judas is here, destiny is next. God bless you. Share this if you can. We love you, and we'll talk to you soon.